All right, and we are here again, and we are back again. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
And this is the Back Again podcast. This is the only review show where we take a sequel from the past, and we find out if, in fact, it is worth going back again. Today, we are continuing on our action sequel list, and we are doing the follow-up to the 2000 Charlie's Angels, and we are doing Charlie's Angels Full Throttle 2003. Charlie's Angels Full Throttle comes out in 2003. It's directed once again by Mick G. It's starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, Bernie Mac, and Demi Moore. So what's different about this is usually this is the part where I read like a little plot synopsis of what the movie's about. But to be honest, this plot's really, it's kind of all over the place. So I thought it'd be more fun to ask you, what do you think the plot is about? And then I'll read like what the IMDb one is after that.
I'll tell you what, I remember the plot to the first one pretty well. I don't remember anything about the plot to this one.
Take a guess. Take a guess of what it is.
In Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
I got nothing.
We've got like a half romance, like betrayal, and then we've got a half pissed off, like former angel. So I don't know.
All right, so here, I'll help you out a little bit. So this is what IMDb says the plot is to Charlie's Angels Full Throttle from 2003. The Angels investigate a series of murders which occur after the theft of a witness protection profile database.
I don't remember that at all. But I remember because Shia LaBeouf is in it.
So after doing some research and kind of reading again once like online about what the plot is about, here's my kind of interpretation of what the plot is about to this movie. So the Angels rescue a U.S. Marshal. And that U.S. Marshal tells them that this thing called Halo, which is the database for a witness protection program people, has been stolen. So the Angels have to go steal it back, right? However, what they don't find out is that U.S. Marshal, that he has hired bad guys to steal that from the Angels once they have successfully like taken it.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then from there, one of the ex-angels, which is Demi Moore, she's going to use that database to sell to different mob families, because if it's witness protection, often the mob families are looking for people that like sold them out.
That was her intention the whole time?
That was her intention. That's why
I thought she was looking for revenge.
No, that's why the finale of the movie is her doing that big kind of like auction where all the different mob families are showing up and then the FBI like arrest them on the roof.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about this plot is that it's very similar to the first one, whereas we're going to have somebody that's going to hire the Angels for one job, and then there's going to be a switch-a-doo-dah.
It never goes easy.
Never goes easy, but they always find out that the initial person that they saved is somehow like a bad guy that's using them to steal something else, right? But what's really interesting about this plot is that they try to weave it in with the Angels to where Drew Barrymore says, like, I used to be in witness protection, right? And that's like,
which, is that true to her character from the TV show?
We're not going to get, I don't care. We're not gonna. But the thing is that she was in that program. So her information is going to get released from this Halo kind of technology.
It's a personal
right?
threat.
And because of that, the bad guys hire Justin Theroux, who plays like an Irishman in this. And he's someone that personally was, inflicted by Drew Barrymore, like, turning him into the police, and then she had to...
Because they were dating.
So basically, the only reason why she's in witness protection program is because of Justin Theroux.
Yeah.
Right? Now, here's what's so stupid about this plot. In the first one, it was all personal, because we have Sam Rockwell, who's got a personal vendetta against Charlie.
Exactly,
right?
Yes.
And he's using the Angels to get access to technology that he's told them was like, this was my technology that was stolen from me. Once they get access to the technology, he can find where Charlie is, and then he's just going to kill her.
Yeah.
Bing, bam, boom. When Demi Moore gets these two rings that tell where all these witness protection people are,
she's still got to sell it.
She's got to sell it to the mob, but how big are these mob families to where it's like each mob family is only going to kill like one or two people on this list?
Yeah, it's like, is it worth all of the rigmarole of... Because I don't even remember Patrick Dempsey. No, who is it? Justin Theroux?
Yeah.
I don't even remember Justin Theroux's reason for being in the plot, other than he's Demi Moore's like past. Yeah. I'm sorry. He's a Drew Barrymore's past.
Yeah. He's basically the person that was turned in by Drew Barrymore. Like he...
I guess it's personal stuff, but they make it the main focus of the story when Demi Moore should be the main focus of the story.
But here's how you fix this plot, because what doesn't make sense about this is that, okay, Drew Barrymore was in witness protection program and then she became an angel, but Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu, they also are like these people that whose lives were taken away or they got new lives from Charlie.
Yeah, their lives
so
changed.
In theory, these two women should also be in witness protection program, that Charlie found them through that. So if you want to make this movie and earn your title of Full Throttle, the people that steal this device of witness protection program, they use to find the angels, and then every bad guy that they've ever turned in as angels are coming after them.
And then they would pay more because they're more like supervillains.
And not only that, then Demi Moore, when she's auctioning off these things at the end, she's not doing to like 5 mob families that are only going to collectively kill maybe 20 people on this list, if that. She's selling it to every bad guy that's ever been wronged by Charlie and the angels.
Yeah, but you could have like other like potential angels on there too, that they could like they could potentially like be wiping out like future generations.
Absolutely. So then it's not just like personal story with Drew Barrymore, somewhat personal story with Demi Moore, but it gives Lucy Liu and Cameron Diaz something to do in this movie too.
Because the thing was, Drew Barrymore's movie was the first one. That was the one where we went all into like her backstory, and then like Lucy Liu and Cameron Diaz were kind of they weren't side, but they were like main adjacent. In this one, Drew Barrymore just takes center stage again with like the same story or the same gimmick.
Yeah. And it's not even like in that first one that it had to do with their backstory. It had to do with who they were as like people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They kind of played into all their weaknesses. And her weakness was that she kind of had a bigger heart, that she was more likely to fall in love, I guess, for like the wrong, or be manipulated.
Yeah.
Even though that's kind of a messed up thing to even put in. Because like the whole like premise of the first one is really reliant on Drew Barrymore falling for Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, but with this one, it's like, it's too much. But yeah, it just feels like too many hats on top of a hat, to the point where, I don't know, when we got to the stuff with Shia LaBeouf where he's doing the motocross racing, and then we get the return of Crispin Glover.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. Like, when was that? Like beginning of Act 2?
Yeah. The reason that they wanted to kill Shia LaBeouf's character was because he was in witness protection. And that is like them, I guess, using the witness protection stuff to kill Shia LaBeouf. But little did they know that Crispin Glover was there to look after Shia LaBeouf.
I don't even think that's true.
I read it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't remember a scene where that was established. Who's paying him to protect Shia LaBeouf? The government?
No, the reason Crispin Glover was trying to protect Shia LaBeouf was because he came from the same orphan home that Shia LaBeouf came from. And that's why the girls then go to see Carrie Fisher at the orphan home, and we get a repeat of the Blues Brothers scene with the yardstick.
Okay, yeah.
But and then they tell that backstory.
Crispin Glover's good in it. And Carrie Fisher's scene was really good.
Well, okay, let's go into it now, because I would say all the performances are good to a certain extent. I would say even like the directing is decent.
I agree with all that.
And
it's really just a script thing.
Yeah, and it's important to do on this list, because just as much as we're gonna like do the raid, where that's very in-camera action, this is like, we don't give a fuck. We know we have wires, and we're gonna use every wire in the book. And I think that has a place in action movie.
It did back in 2003.
Yeah, for sure. But that's like part of the history, Whether or not they do right by that in the sequel, I would say that the action is still okay in the sequel, as far as the
I think it's a little bit better.
Sure. I mean, I think what you like about the action in the first movie is that you're invested in the plot and in the characters. With this one, the plot's such a mess that when we get an action scene, it's cool, but I'm like not as invested, because I don't know what the fuck is going on.
They amp it up though. They go more full throttle with the action, at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe that's where they get the full throttle. They just should have called it More Ropes.
Yeah. More wires.
More wires. Charlie's Angels. More wires. I don't know. What else do you want to talk about with this frickin' movie? Because outside of, the things that don't age well, outside of the performances, outside of the action, the directing, we've already kind of gotten into the plot of, why it's bad, why we think we can make it better. Is there anything you still enjoyed about the sequel?
There's things I liked about the franchise, mostly stuff that like I respected because you can't do it now anymore. So it's like, you can look at things that don't age well and kind of be like, ew, that doesn't age well. And you can also look at it and be like, oh, that's very indicative of the time that it was made.
Yeah, it feels like it's like kind of almost like a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Like the way he directs the action, it feels like, kind of comic booky type of frames and stuff. But so I feel like that translates well over time, because we're still in that right now. But outside of that, I mean, it's such a horny franchise.
It is, yeah. It's like it's like that and like Wild Wild West. It's like, what's up with all these horny movies coming out like at the turn of the century?
It's interesting because, in regards to like female action leads, I like the fact that they're kind of taking on these superpowers, but they never address the superpowers. Like a lot of these girls can just like punch through bricks and stuff. So it makes you believe that through their training, they were able to like just become so strong.
Yeah, they're not superpowers. They're just like super strong.
Exactly. Whereas in like a lot of movies nowadays, most of the female action heroes are superheroes, so they have powers. So there is something interesting about the Charlie's Angels franchise where it's just like, we're women, we don't give a fuck. That's not, our gender isn't important with this. We're just super strong, we can kick everybody's ass. And it's important because we don't have many female action movies on this list. We have this in like Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
So even
to be fair, this is like classics. So I feel like female-driven action movies are kind of more a recent thing.
Well, it's a niche genre because you got to think like really like action movies and like individual stories, like original stories, and then follow-ups to those original stories.
Oh yeah, the sequels.
Yeah, no like book or comic book like predecessor before it. So I mean, this obviously is like, you know, an adaptation from a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So it is nice just to have that kind of switcheroo on the list, not have like a bunch of Mel Gibsons on the list, but like, you know, get some girl power.
It would be more fun to talk about this franchise if the sequel itself was better written.
Yeah.
But it's so repetitive, and that's the thing, is it's so redundant of the first one. I'll just end up talking about the first one because I'd rather be doing that.
Yeah. And you know,
the second one's like if they just did the first one wrong.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, like, why didn't they make a third one, right? So the first Charlie's Angels, which comes out in 2000, it's got a budget of $75 million. It's got a box office return of $264.1 million.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, right? So then the Charlie's Angels Full Throttle in 2003 has a budget of $120 million,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's probably because of all the actors.
Mm-hmm.
And then that only has a box office return of $259.1 million. So it doesn't even surpass the original movie.
Yeah.
And it doubles its budget. So when it came time to make a third one, it's like, well, you know, everyone just got paid a bunch of money and we didn't even get that much money back. So once again, not to get in the reboot, but I mean, clearly they haven't figured out this problem yet.
What did we do wrong?
It's not that simple.
What did we do wrong? We did nothing wrong.
I can't believe that they got Demi Moore, but they didn't use her. Like, she wasn't prominent in the first. She wasn't in the first half, I don't think.
No, she gets that reveal. Yeah, where she's on the roof of Griffith Observatory, and the U.S. Marshal comes up, and he's like, "We did it, partner!" And then she just shoots him twice in the chest.
And then we reveal it's Demi Moore.
And it was funny because when we revealed Sam Rockwell in the first one, I'm pretty sure it was way earlier. And at that point, that was the only flip.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, there's like a flip right before that because they give like the keys back to the U.S. Marshal in Bosley's office and he reaches for it without like hurting his ribs or something. And then the girls are like, oh, his ribs don't hurt still. So something must be going on with him. And that's like already our first flip from the first movie.
That he's a bad guy. And then we reveal Demi Moore on top of that.
That was a nice reach for a guy with a couple of fractured ribs.
Good going, Boz.
We got who?
I mean, is there anything else you want to say about her performance as the bad guy in this? Because, you know, there's a moment where
Was she even a former angel or was she just a bad guy?
No, she was a former angel.
The former angel doesn't factor into it because she's not out for revenge. She's just out to out the hidden identity people.
Well, that's why it would have been more interesting.
She's out to make money.
It would have been more interesting if that database that she steals reveals the identities of all former angels. That way, like, they're all...
Because then it's like she's betraying...
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, but once again, that's not what they did with this movie. They
Dude,
just
former
had
angels gotta, like, pay the bills. Like, you can almost, like, justify her actions because it's no, you know...
I don't think there's really any justification for why she's doing anything in this movie besides Demi Moore was pretty popular still at the time. Well, well, that, but also, like, they just wanted, like, a big face as, like, the villain in this. But...
Then why do they have fucking Patrick Dempsey or
know.
the other guy, Justin Theroux, being the villain for like the first half?
But let me explain it this way. Like, with your villains are always going to be hammy in these types of movies, right?
Sure.
The way that Sam Rockwell is hammy is that after he like shoots Drew Barrymore, he does this like whole kind of dance. You know what I mean? He's doing the splits and he's like smoking a cigarette. And that's because he's like celebrating his victory. He tricked everybody and he's going to go get revenge for his father on Charlie, right? So that kind of hamminess fills in with his character. In this one, Demi Moore is like wearing this like bear jacket with like no clothes on underneath it. She's got this one long pinky nail that she like bites. It's got a little diamond on it and stuff. And she's like, woo, and like all happy with her champagne. And it's like, who is this character.
Yeah. Demi Moore doesn't have any motivation other than just money, apparently.
Well, this is perfect because I think what I like about the first one is that there's never a bad guy monologue speech. You could give the argument that Sam Rockwell gives one to Drew Barrymore, but really he's just kind of like, you know, laying into her and like insulting her when he's doing that. Demi Moore does the monologue in this one to Charlie, and she literally shoots the voice box, even though that's stupid. He's not even in the room.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the problem between these two movies. One doesn't have the monologue because like, you know what it is. Like, you get it. This one, it's like, we don't know what it is, so let's just have her explain it.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you.
See, that's the thing is like, I don't know. It's like people assume, like writers assume that when villains are happy, like they monologue like because it's like a hobby of theirs. And it's like, no, like they don't do that. You think they do because you need exposition right now. When they're happy, they do what Sam Rockwell did. And they just fucking insult the person while they're down. Like, that's how villains act. Demi Moore doesn't act like a villain. She acts like a
Screenwriter.
She acts like a screenwriter, just dishing out exposition and moving the plot forward.
Yeah, she's literally like that guy from Die Hard 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie.
So as always on this podcast, we ask 3 questions that lead to a final vote of is it worth, in fact, going back again. And the first question, as always, is does it work as a sequel? And you can go off first if you want to.
I think it doesn't work as a sequel. I'm going to fault it on, because you made a really good point about the action. And if we're doing action movies, then it's got to be this. There's no emotion behind the action in this movie when there is emotion behind the action in the first movie. And when you have it the first time and you lose it the second time, then that's a big no-no. I don't think any action movie on our list has had less emotional engagement in the action. Because like John McClane was still able to hold it for Die Hard, like The Raid still had it, just going back down the list, Lethal Weapon definitely had it in spades. Like this is really gonna suffer from that. Even Too Fast, Too Furious. They tried really hard, but they still managed to do it. This one is just so much of a, Charlie's Angels is just so much of a mess on the screenplay front that it can't do that. It can go bigger with the action and it can go louder with it, but it can't go like more meaningful with it. And yeah, I gotta fault it on that. And then on top of the action, just the writing, the repetitive nature of the story, the relentless focus on Drew Barrymore's character. I mean, I don't know. I kind of want to like, in the original show, was there equal focus on all 3 of them? Or
I mean,
was there a leader and then 2?
It's not, I mean, that's like saying like in the book.
I know, but it's just like, I don't, if it's Charlie's Angels, I don't want the Drew Barrymore show necessarily. She's good in it, but I think the scripts just focus way too much on her character, especially, you can do that in the first one, you can't do it again in the second one. You've got to show something new, especially with the same story they were trying to tell. Those are 2 big reasons. I could get into a lot of smaller reasons, but I'll let you take it from here.
It's a little harder for me because I do think it works as a sequel on a concept level. I don't think that they do it, I don't think they execute it well.
Yeah, like if you pitch this,
yeah, the outline,
I would say that's a good sequel. If you showed me the script, I'd be like, this is not a good sequel.
Yeah, the outline works because it's still it gives us a bigger world and it does further the characters a little bit in regards to, Cameron Diaz moves in with Luke Wilson and all that kind of stuff.
But those are all arbitrary advancements, I feel like.
They're arbitrary, but on paper, I think it's enough.
And like
right?
with Lucy Liu, Lucy Liu's is probably the best because at least it's her trying to get back in touch with like her father to an extent.
Yeah, but
they butcher that.
They butcher that, and also with like Joey from Friends, like they're on a break, but then at the end of the movie, she's just like, "The break's over," and it's like, why?
She says it like that.
Yeah,
the break's over,
baby. We're back in action, and it's like that's funny, but why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This movie was almost a little bit more. Well, it's not a little bit. This movie's more hollow than the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And the first movie can come across as hollow and shallow, but there's little cherries on top that make that first movie enjoyable. It makes that first movie like work.
It's the misdirection. I feel like that's like the staple of Charlie's Angels is the misdirection. You have it in the characters and how they use their looks to get what they need. And then you have it in the whole plot and what you expect from a show about like 3 sexy spy ladies.
Yeah, and they don't do like cliche action things in that first movie where they, like I said, Sam Rockwell never gives a big speech. He
Exactly, but
plan.
they do in the second one.
Exactly. So the second movie, on concept-wise, it works as a sequel. Execution-wise, I don't think it works.
They
as a
fall into
sequel.
the traps.
It does that, and it really comes down to like, man, the first one made a lot of money, and you're gonna have like a bad guy go on the roof of the Griffith Observatory and be like, "We did it, partner! Bang bang!" And it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's
like, you guys are better than this.
That's your big reveal that this guy from the first scene essentially was a villain. That the first guy they helped was a villain, and he just comes out and says, "Hey, partner."
Yeah. And really for me, it's also like that, just that strip club. So when you repeat like the same beats from the first one, and not only that, but you then make it more convoluted on top of that, I don't know, man. Like, for those, and I guess maybe for Pink, because she's in the movie also.
Oh yeah, wait, you're doing ding it on that?
A little bit, because
Okay.
that's what this movie is. It's just cameos.
Yeah.
There's nothing deeper than it. Whereas, and I'm pretty sure there's cameos in the first one, but they were once again more clever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that's the thing is they have what's frustrating is they show that they can do it. Even in the sequel, they can make the Carrie Fisher cameo work. But then why can they not get the Pink cameo to work? Why can they not then do anything with the?
I mean, Bruce Willis is also in this movie for a little bit too.
Oh yeah, he didn't have any lines, right?
No, but I know what you're saying. Like basically, like they know how to do this. Why did they become so complacent
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the second one? Or maybe they were just riding a high. They thought they could do no wrong. From everything that we've kind of said, I think that it's going to be 2 X's, but it's going to barely be 2 X's. And I feel bad giving it an X because I wanted to like this movie a lot more.
Well, you only want to like it because you like the first one so much. So
Yeah, when you like the characters and you like this style of action and this style of storytelling, even though it's cheesy, but it's like a comic book, yeah, you want to see more of that. And especially like early 2000s where we were just starting to get superhero movies, but we were having a really fun time making these kind of wild and crazy movies. They just got a little sloppy. There was no like discipline on set. It was just like, yeah, go ahead, say that, Bernie Mac.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. Which, in fairness, they did that with Bill Murray in the first one too. But you know.
But they had more structure with the plot. Like you can have your characters, you can have your actors.
First one's tight. First script is tight.
You can have your characters you can have your actors have a voice for your characters, but they can't like control plot beats and story development.
Yeah. So that sounds like it's going to get 2 X's. So the next question is going to be, is it enjoyable / entertaining? And I will start this one off and I will say, it is enjoyable / entertaining, but only because of what we know from the first one and only because there are bad, ridiculous things in the second one. This second one is more boring, I would say, but there are some really stupid things that they do that make you laugh. And then there's some stupid things that they do that don't make you laugh. So I would say just as much as it doesn't work as a sequel, like barely, this one barely is enjoyable / entertaining. I think if you watch the first one, you can watch the second one. You'll be disappointed with it, but you'll be glad like at least you saw it.
I was gonna say the same thing, but honestly, I think the disappointment would be a bit too much. Yeah. I'm gonna say it's not enjoyable / entertaining.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just now kind of realizing how odd it is, kind of, because it's like if we're saying like we're giving these bad X's to Charlie's Angels, and like the first one's so good. And like I hate that like passersby are just like assume maybe that this is like an X for the whole franchise or something like that. The first one's so good. So I hate saying that this one is less than that, but it is way less than that.
So then let's say what is enjoyable / entertaining about the sequel? You have the action, the direction, the performance.
But the action is hollow. The direction is good, but it's not as good as the first one. And the same with the performances.
It's still hollow, but these performers are still entertaining in how they fight. Like that opening scene when they are at that, what do you want to call that? That bar that they're at, and like, you know, Drew Barrymore's drinking up top and Cameron Diaz comes in as like the Switzerland girl.
Yeah.
And Lucy Liu's down below rescuing and stuff like that. Lucy Liu has her action scene, blah, 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 blah. But then once they get up top, like they all get on the chairs and they're like screaming and they're yelling like, ah! That's entertaining to me.
Yeah.
Now, even though the plot doesn't like make it enjoyable, their performances still make it enjoyable. So is it enjoyable / entertaining? Well, the movie isn't, but some of the people in the movie are.
Yeah. I was going to say the only thing that I would really say is better than the first one is that I think the comedy had higher peaks. Like there were a couple jokes that I think were just the best between both movies. Yeah. Especially that Crispin Glover cutaway. But like...
Well, that's because there's some offensive ones in the first one too. And there's offensive ones in the second one, but there are better ones in the second one too.
Yeah, they're better and offensive. Yeah, that's the only thing. Like, I don't know. Compared to the first, no. So when we say enjoyable / entertaining, are we saying on its own or compared to the first?
I think it's both.
Okay, I'm gonna say no.
Personally, I think you're being a little harsher, which I understand, but that's where I put my harshness in this. It doesn't work as a sequel because doesn't work as a sequel is more reliant on the story. You don't have to really have a good story to be enjoyable / entertaining, and that's like if we're gonna base that off of experience with other movies on this list, like look at The Jungle Book 2. That movie does not work as a sequel. That movie does not need to exist, but it was enjoyable / entertaining.
Yeah, I know, but that had strengths. This one has like a couple better jokes.
Yeah, well, the strengths I think are the performances.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
But that sounds like it's going to get a check and an X. So the last question is going to be, does it need to exist? And you can start off this last one if you want.
No. I think a sequel for the first movie would need to exist.
Yeah.
Like, if I would be disappointed if we went back and this was just a standalone movie. But if this is what they're going to do with it, then no.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard because it's like...
Because it's not just bad, it's redundant.
Well, what are we saying doesn't need to exist with this second one? Probably because, like I said, the plot on paper I think works, but in the execution doesn't. They get too bogged down into these scenes where we're explaining everything more so than just like a clever plot for these actors to perform in.
Well, I feel like
do the characters again need to exist? Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think they should. Yeah, but this story is just really, it's that basic kind of sequel story where there's full. I was asking, I was like, why is it called Full Throttle?
Yeah. They went more Full Throttle in the first one.
I guess you have to just dink the story itself. So the story itself doesn't need to exist, but it's a shame because another story of these characters needs to exist.
Yeah.
And it's a
it
shame
sucks that
they
it all
didn't.
came down to that, but it is so important in general, the story for a movie, and it was so... Like, it wasn't just so bad, it was so just repetitive, and it was so inconsistent because we saw certain beats work, and then we just saw, like, the other 60 to 70% of it not.
Well, like, look at, like, Die Hard 2. Like, Die Hard 2 still made a lot of money at the box office, and, that movie got a little bit more shallow, that movie got a little bit more hollow, but they raised the stakes in certain areas to make it more interesting.
They raised the stakes, and they kept John McClane consistent.
With this one, it's like they didn't raise the stakes, they just made the plot more convoluted.
Yeah.
And they did that thing where they just give you 3 new villains, but then this guy's dead and this guy's not the villain, and it's just like...
Just give me stakes. That's all you need. You just need the angels and the stakes.
Yeah.
We don't have the stakes. We barely have the angels because Drew Barrymore's taken over and she's just telling the same story for the most part as the first one. So we're just missing the core. It's like a pizza without dough.
I bring up...
It's like, I can't recommend this to anyone.
Yeah, I bring up the Die Hard thing because it's like people will return to watch these characters again if you just give us a little bit more of something. And when you do these kind of lazy plots with these sequels, like you can just tell, like people probably went to go see this opening weekend and then they told their friends like, "Oh, the story sucks. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to see that."
Well,
Like,
I
like seeing
don't
the
remember what
performances.
happened because that's the thing is when the story sucks, you don't remember the movie because that's the glue that keeps the whole thing together.
So if you're doing that math at home, that's going to be 5 X's and 1 check. So it's going to get 1 giant X for not worth going back again. It's a shame because I wanted to like this movie a lot, like I said, but
Especially after, because I think we both watched these back to back.
yeah, like
And
the
so
day
especially just
after.
coming off the first one,
Oh yeah,
I really wanted it to be good.
for sure, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be a wrap on Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, that you comment below. Make sure you check out season 1 of the Back Again podcast and check out the first couple episodes that we've done of season 2 so far on our action sequel list. Special shout out to Neely for doing our intro and outro song. And outside of that, I don't really know, Drew. What else? You got anything else to add?
Enjoy heaven.
Go to hell.
All right, Drew. So all right, we'll see you next week.